Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Professor Tony Liao. Welcome to our CougAR Lab live stream. So this is something that we do uh, once every few months, just to have a Q&A and teach people a little bit more about augmented reality and virtual reality technology. So I've been studying augmented virtual reality technologies for a long time. So you might have seen other people who are experts in AR, VR, or they're talking a lot about the new technology. And we've actually been doing it in the lab, where we do actual research studies, scientific studies, to find out what is and isn't happening when it comes to augmented and virtual reality. So really excited that people have come to join us. We'll take questions in the chat. But I'll just talk a little bit more about what our lab does and some of the emerging directions that I see in augmented and virtual reality technology. So, like I said, this is something that we do pretty regularly. We've been following the AR VR industry for a really long time. So there's been all these boom and bust cycles, the hype and the fall, and the scammers and the suckers. So this is, the real deal when it comes to what's happening in AR VR. We published some of the first studies on augmented reality protest layers, published some of the first studies on Google Glass and Microsoft HoloLens. We published some of the first studies on VR in children, so 6 to 8 year old kids in virtual reality, and what people are doing out in place in space and seeing things that may be negative about the spaces around them. We've also published pieces that are about the future of augmented reality and virtual reality and the whole overall cycle. So we're really excited to talk to you about this health and medicine, augmented reality, social media. And it's because AR VR has been trying to be the next big thing for so long, that you have these science fiction depictions, but then the road to get there has been a little long, a little windy. But I think we're right at this really important moment where we're at the cusp of something really big, I think, with social media and other kinds of things. And we give this talk all over the place, or a version of this talk. So excited to be able to stream this out to you all today. So, what I want to talk about is some of the new emerging possibilities for AR VR. So, some things that maybe you haven't seen before, or some of the things that researchers in the field are thinking about. And then also thinking about just the emerging types of possibilities that come from that, and the types of data that we can gather with these technologies. And then new questions that we can ask and we need to ask about the technology. And I'll take some questions there at the end. So, I think we all know that there's been a lot of new hardware coming out, or new things that we can pick up, and some of them are booming, busting. There's Oculus Pro, there's Apple glasses, but I think the point here is these companies, some of the biggest companies in the world, they're looking for AR VR, right? Tim Cook says it's going to be bigger than the iPhone. We're going to be picking this up. It's going to be that revolutionary where we just integrate it into our lives seamlessly. And that kind of talk, that kind of discussion about the technology really is where people are hoping that it'll go, right? Maybe you've seen Ready Player One, like what the Oasis looks like, or Mark Zuckerberg's been doing the metaverse, and he's been doing all of these talks in the metaverse, and that's their big vision, where they even changed the name of their company to Meta, right? And is this really the world that we're going to live in? These are the companies that are trying to make that happen, whether that's Microsoft, the rumored Apple glasses that we've seen some prototypes of that are hopefully coming out soon, that will get people into this space. With that, because it's all happening and there's new forms of interaction and you can actually go to these places, we're starting to see new kinds of data that we as researchers can start to gather, whether that's physical data like attention and cueing, what you're looking at in virtual reality, whether that's your perception, how much you perceive something to be real or not real. We have these new hand tracking and gestural interfaces that can see how people are picking things up and what motions they're engaging in. Uh, there are ways that we can see body motion and track people's movements and know how fast somebody moves and start to guess at how old they are, or things like that, as well as obviously voice commands, buttons, and haptics. So we're also starting to see, I think, some new demographic changes when it comes to who's in augmented and virtual reality. Uh, Certainly, a younger generation skews towards virtual reality faster to pick these things up, but over time, that'll start changing as well. We're also looking at how people attitudes will change when they see things in virtual and augmented reality. If it's not there, and you're seeing something, will that change your attitude or your emotional response? Right? We know that a lot of what you see, if you see it, you perceive it as more or less real, and you can have real emotions in AR VR, just the same as if you saw something in real life. We're seeing presence data, how much people feel the sense that they're in another place, as well as general experience and satisfaction, right? Do people want to keep coming back to these places? Is it comfortable and that sort of thing? But the thing about VR, the thing about AR is that the emotions are real, okay? Maybe, I don't know, if some of you played the Richie's Walk the Plank experience where you're literally standing on a tall building. People freak out, right? Because you actually see it and you think it's real, even though in your mind hey, I'm just in a building. If you're on the plank, you see it and you feel it, and it triggers your mind to think that way, and it tricks you a little bit. So the emotions are real. People freak out. They start really screaming. Their heart starts beating. Their pulse starts racing a little bit. And so that's the kind of effect that we know is possible and what we want to explore when it comes to AR VR. There's also going to be new spatial metadata with augmented reality, especially when we move out into space, thinking about covering our space with all kinds of data. Any public data that you see available about space and place, whether that's personal, geographical, commercial, public, or private. Imagine moving through your world with all that data on top of it. Then there's all the data that's actually in the virtual world itself, right? All the avatars that people are wanting to create, and the face tracking and gestures and these kinds of things when you're actually in virtual reality, as well as tracking all of the movement in those spaces and who's talking to who and who's interacting with what objects you're picking up and how fast you're moving. That's all virtual world data. That's a new sort of trove of data that we haven't really we never gotten before, because VR has not been this ubiquitous. So we are finally learning what are people choosing to do in virtual reality, whether that's going to concerts or going to comedy clubs or just hanging out in VR chat and meeting strangers, and also doing weird stuff where they jump around at each other or get in others' faces. These are the kinds of things that we're learning about AR, VR. Maybe some of you have been in AR, VR. I'm sure maybe you have questions about these stuff, but the content creation is really starting to get really, really easy. Okay, you can pop into any of these public platforms. This one's called Engage. There's some other ones, and you can just record yourself or your avatar in VR, and that's something that we didn't used to be able to do. And I think that's something that's really, really exciting. There's even some possibilities for AI content creation. Mark Zuckerberg demoed this about a year ago.
First, let's start with the scene. Let's go to a park. Actually, let's go to the beach. Pretty good. Let's add some clouds. Huh, that's all AI generated. Actually, let's add some alto cumulus clouds. Alright, and let's add an island over there.
It's cool. How about we add some trees out here by the sand? Let's get a picnic blanket down here. Let's put up a table. Let's put a stereo. Let's get some drinks as well. Let's get the sound of some waves and seagulls.
Does that speaker work? Let's play some tropical music. And let's add a hydrofoil. You gotta have a hydrofoil.
You gotta teach me how to ride one in VR.
So that's artificially intelligent or AI generated content using voice only, right? He's saying, "Show me autocumulus clouds," and it auto generates what he thinks that would look like in virtual reality. This kind of stuff is really gonna blow content creation in VR out of the water, right? Like, you don't need to code manually every little thing. You can summon whole worlds with your voice, which could really lead to this, I think, revolution of AR, VR, especially when it's paired with things like machine learning, paired with things like deep learning, paired with things like facial recognition. It then starts to integrate and create this web of technologies. So that's a lot of what we're looking at here in the CougAR lab. We've done some studies on augmented reality and social media. We're really interested in the devices and how to apply theory to various dimensions of augmented reality and virtual reality research, whether that's presence theories, avatars, cues, what signals you're sending off, how much these things interact with your physical space and your geospatial surroundings, and what's going on with the users, right? What happens when you come into these environments? What's your attention? What's your perception? What's your eye tracking? Your user experience, and how much you're processing these things, and then seeing how people interact in these virtual reality spaces and augmented reality spaces, as well as increasingly some more motion capture theories about human body motion, gestural motion, or even some tactile or haptic interactions. This is one of our research assistants trying out one of the new haptic gloves that lets her touch sand or spiders or rocks through your fingers, and it blows little air through these gloves to give you that sensation. And there's also these new interaction possibilities that are starting now, which is eye tracking within the system, facial tracking within the system. This is me testing out the blink function on the Pico. You can see me looking around at different. It's following my eyes while I'm in VR, and so you could have interactions that are based solely on eye tracking. And then this is me playing a game and doing gestures, and I'm not using a controller in this environment, and I'm able to create blocks and levitate them using my gestures, and then flatten to get the zero gravity out of here. So this is the kind of stuff that we're doing here in the lab. We started at the University of Houston. Our goal is to cut through all of the noise and study this, what we think is a really exciting area, and apply these scientific theories and research to try to answer these kinds of questions, like how will it affect people? How will people behave and interact in these environments? What makes AR special and unique? And what are the risks in AR, VR? And so, for anyone who's interested, I'll open it up now to Q&A. But any future students, any digital media students, anyone interested in studying this stuff, come check us out. All right, it looks like we got a question from Jana. Do you feel like the auto generation in VR spaces can potentially threaten the job market for creators and concept artists and designers? So that's a great question, right? Especially when we think about that example of that builder bot, right? Um, and this is kind of a question that we've been asking about AI generally. Okay, some of these systems where you can, ask an AI system to create something, and it'll auto create artwork, or it'll auto create the image. I think that there will be some jobs that can be more streamlined with artificial intelligence. There's no doubt about that, right? Being able to create basic things and basic objects, and even some really, really beautiful ones that are unique, is possible. Okay. I don't think that it will eliminate the jobs, because you can't trust an AI system to make every kind of editorial judgment that a human might make. That is exactly what we want, right? AI has to make one decision out of, a million decisions, and it'll land on the one. Okay. But there will be a whole host of tasks or a whole host of jobs that, uh, you'll need somebody to make a different decision, right? You'll need somebody to make a decision that aligns more with what a person actually wants, what a client actually wants, what a company actually wants. And then they'll need to talk to a person to do that, because maybe the AI can't understand that instruction or can't get a sense of it. So let's say it like this. Maybe if you are working in a creative field, you can use an AI tool to create the first draft of something or a base model of what something looks like. But then from there, you as a human being have to then apply your judgment to say, well, hey, this is what my client wants, or this is what is or isn't going to work with this other, this other entity, or I like this decision better than others. And then so you'll be the one that's making that judgment for building on something that a computer generated, or building on something that an AI decided on. I also think that, you know, we worry about these things a lot, right? We worry about artificial intelligence and job loss and these kinds of things, automation. And for sure, there will be some displacement. But there's always going to be a role for humans and human expertise in these systems, or will evolve around some of the capabilities of these artificial intelligence systems, right? One of the things that people have a hard time with, particularly when they're describing, hey, here's the digital media that I want, or here's a media artifact that I want, is telling them, right? We have a hard time verbalizing, here's the exact media that I want. Okay. And if you have a hard time verbalizing that, then an AI system is not going to be able to do that, right? You need to be an expert in order to tell an AI system, hey, here's the technique that you should be doing to smooth out those clouds, or to do that kind of thing. So even in an AI world, I don't think people are going to be able to have the language to speak to an AI system to be able to create some of those things, and some of the artifacts. Right, you still need a person that will interpret for the client and the AI system. Right, like how many times have we heard a client say, I want something fresh, I want something edgy, I want something that pops. Okay, well, those words don't mean anything, right? They're trying to convey a vibe, right? If you gave an AI system those instructions, they would have no idea where to start, because you didn't describe an object, you didn't describe a literal thing, you didn't summon the picnic table or the stereo or something like that. You gave them a vibe. Okay. And if you give a human being those instructions, then they can sort of interpret that in a certain way and come up with the vibe that a client or an organization might be working with. And AI would have a hard time with that particular instruction. So that's the kind of translation that I think concept artists, creators, designers will still have to do, even as our AI systems keep getting better and better. All right. Got a question here about how I think advertising will work on VR. Will you get ads in an app, VR app, if you're using a headset for work? Yeah, VR ads are out there. Think about these more as like a sponsorship, right? So Horizon Venues has a bunch of concert halls or other kinds of venues that are sponsored by companies because they're hoping that you'll go there, right? Just in the same way that some company will sponsor a stadium, a real life stadium. They can sponsor the virtual reality stadium. So for right now, that's the level of partnership that's going on, and then there's actual real money being transacted in virtual reality. So if the VR metaverse, if augmented reality gets to the level that some of these companies are hoping, then advertising is going to play a huge role in that, right? If the people are there, if the eyeballs are there, if that's where people want to be, then the advertisers are going to follow. And what form that takes, it'll still be a little unknown. Okay, is it going to pop up right in front of your face? Probably not, but we don't know. It would be pretty annoying if that happened, or if you had a subscription that would pay to get rid of your VR ads or something like that. But for sure, think about the virtual reality metaverse right now as a public forum, and because of that, it's like billboard advertising or sponsored advertising, where it's the Coca-Cola Horizons Pavilion for concerts, or it's the McDonald's Comedy Club here on the main street of Horizon events, or something like that. So we're gonna start to see more of these transmedia partnerships with existing media entities sort of porting over to VR and seeing how that works for them. Uh, Whether that's sporting content, whether that's concert entertainment venues. Like there was a recent Fatboy Slim concert in Engage that was very successful, and they sold a bunch of tickets. And then if people decide, hey, we want to do that, millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people want to be in these spaces, then the advertisers will follow because they'll want to be a part of that. All right, so these are great questions and really really important ones that we have to ask. And I'm always super excited to talk to people about augmented reality and virtual reality and a lot of the work that the lab is doing. And I know Twitch is a medium to reach a lot of different people and just have more of these interactive chats. So we're excited to do it, and we'll keep uh, putting out some content. If you want to follow us on LinkedIn, we're the CougAR Lab, as well as our Twitter and other social media feeds. So thanks a lot, everybody, for coming. Thanks a lot for your questions, and I'll see you next time.